creative process, and what do you do with this technique when you learn it? As you learn to make all these technically good photographs, what do you do? How do you take these photographs? And it's very difficult. I notice that a lot of times on workshops that people kind of poop out if we get started early in the morning. By 10 or 11 o'clock, they're tired. And the reason they're tired is because they've been doing it all with their brain. Because they're in a workshop, they're trying to learn, and so they're doing a lot of it mentally. They're doing it all mentally, and that will tire you out. The interesting thing is that the active part of our brain, that is the body-mind, the persona that we work with every day, that cannot create anything. That part of the brain that we use to drive cars and make things and make bridges and do all this wonderful stuff, what it does is apply rules. That's all it knows how to do. It's very much computer-like. The fact that we are trying, as a human species, trying to create computers to simulate mind is not an accident. That's really how we try to see the world. We intuitively know that. And so, if you try to do creative things with your mental mind only, it's not going to work very well. And I've seen people looking at a scene, like a tree and a rock, and you sense some relationship to that there's some relationship in there. And then the mind takes over and you try to mentally make a picture out of that. And you know how hard work that is. You move the camera and you move it and you move it and you look and you study and you look and you study. And the more you work at it, the harder it gets and the less, and it just doesn't work. And so you really can't create with that mind. It applies rules. So you've all had the experience of working on a problem and you can't solve it. You think and you think and you think until your brain's tired. And then all hell with it. So you give up on it. And then you go take it. The classic example is you take a shower or you go for a walk and you're not even thinking about it. And then all of a sudden you get this big aha. That's the answer. Well, the way the psychology of that works is the subconscious had drudged that answer up for you from somewhere, and it was there the whole time. It's just that your active mind can't see it until it's asleep or tired or knocked aside or something like that. And then the subconscious presents this answer for you. It really doesn't understand it, but it knows that you wanted it, and so it will dredge it up from someplace. The creative side of us comes through our intuition, not through our mental capability. And that's a very strange part. We try so hard, and what we need to do is actually relax when we're trying to do something creative. If you look at, say, religious ceremonies like prayer and prayer beads and chants and whirling dervishes and all of this ritual, much of it, of all religions of the world of all time, it has one purpose and one purpose in mind, and that's to tire the brain out, knock it aside, and then the subconscious can create for us, can bring to you whatever is you believe is there. Something like, say, Kriya Yoga, for example. All of the yoga techniques are for that reason. There's one called Kriya Yoga, where they dance and dance and dance and play loud music and laugh and until they're just giddy. And some men fall down in a tired pile, and that can release that. But you have to knock that brain aside first. You have to shove it aside, put it to sleep, confuse it. The Zen methods of the koans, the unanswerable riddles, confuse the mind, and for a moment you get that illumination. And that's the purpose of so much of these rituals, regardless of what religion is simply to shut that active brain off and let the subconscious come through. So there are some interesting things to think about that. And that is, if you're trying too hard, you're trying too hard when you're photographing. You really have to be relaxed. And it's very difficult in this modern age to provide time for yourself to do that. The pressures are just amazing. And the communications, you never are alone anymore without someone beating on you with a message. You can't even go to a gas station anymore. I used to, when I was working full-time, that was a long time ago, I used to actually look forward to standing there with a gas pump in my hand, because that would give me at least a minute alone away from the damn traffic. But now they've got a video screen in there and they're yelling at you about products. And, oh, for heaven's sakes, it makes me so mad. I want to put a screwdriver through the damn screen, you know. So you're just pounded on 24 hours a day now with somebody else's message. So it's very difficult. You understand why artists for all ages have run off to some little tiny place someplace where they can find peace and quiet and shut that brain off and let the creative juices start to flow. There's a few exercises that help, but if you're constantly under barrage, it's impossible to say, well, gee, Saturday afternoon between 2 and 4, I have 2 hours, I'll go be creative at that time. You can't do it. It just flat does not work. You need seamless time because the biorhythms of the body work that way. We just have to provide time for us to do that. That's why it's real important that you set time aside to do your photography. At least one day a week, at least half of a day sometime, you've got to get out there. If you don't even have any place in mind, that's perfectly okay. Just go drive someplace and walk around and look. See photographically. See with your eyes. And try to shut the brain chatter off. And there are photographs everywhere. We don't see them. I used to head off on a trip, and it would sometimes for the first couple of days I wouldn't see any photographs, and I'd get mad at myself, and I'd say, Gordon, God damn it, what's the matter with you? And, you know, you idiot, you're out here with all your cameras and your way. But it just took a couple of days to shed off all the junk from civilization and the pressures of work. And then maybe on the third day, all of a sudden I'd see photographs everywhere. I couldn't look anywhere without seeing photographs. And that's how that works. You just have to give yourself the time to shed the cares and whatnot of the pressures of job, family, civilization, all the rest of that stuff. And that's when I go someplace. I don't like televisions. I don't read the newspaper. I'm like a feral animal wandering around someplace. I change when I'm out on my own for a long period of time. I'm no longer the guarded kind of person that we normally would see in a civilization. I open up. I become very emotional, and that helps me see things. I'm friendly, but I kind of avoid getting too mixed up with people when I'm out on my own. I don't want that stream to be interrupted. Edward Weston was teaching a workshop in Yosemite Valley in the early 1940s. They started some workshops down there. And at that time, Yosemite Valley, the parking lots were just gravel. And it had been raining. He was standing there in the parking lot, actually, with his students. There were 4 or 5 of them, I think, not very many. And he was telling them that you should be able to just turn around and see a photograph, that photographs are everywhere. So he said, well, I'll prove it. So he turned around. You realize he's in the middle of a gravel parking lot. It would take some guts to make that statement and turn around and look for a photograph. Well, he turned around, and it had been raining, and there was a mud puddle, bird bath, in front of him now. It was behind him. And there was this little piece of wire that came up and did this. And he set up his camera, and he took that photograph. You don't see that very often. It's in the really big book of Ed Weston's work. And it was a demonstration that the photographs are everywhere. And one of the exercises I like to give to my students is at random times when you're out walking around, just stop and turn around. If you're someplace, just turn around and find a photograph. Let it come to you. That's the important thing, is to let it come to you.